I once knew a love so intense that it seemed to light up my entire world, only to have it extinguished by circumstances beyond my control. My father disapproved of the woman I loved, and though I pleaded and tried to make him understand, I ultimately could not persuade him. Heartbroken and discouraged, I parted ways with her. But that departure, however forced it felt, did not wipe her from my mind or heart. Over time, I tried to move on, tried to find new pursuits, tried to pretend I was fine. Yet every so often, a fleeting thought or memory would stir up the old feelings, reminding me just how deeply she had been etched into my being. For over a decade, I carried those memories quietly, as though each day I was placing one more layer of distance between me and her name. Life moved on, or so I thought. I worked different jobs, associated with various people, and learned to function in a world that expects everyone to keep marching forward without looking back. Despite all outward appearances, though, I remained haunted by questions. What could have been? Where is she now? Would she still recognize me? Then, in a moment as unexpected as a sudden summer rain, she reappeared. A knock on the door, a text message, or perhaps a friend of a friend's call. I can't quite recall the exact sequence. All I know is that one day she was nowhere in sight, and the next she was standing before me, and my heart almost burst with renewed hope. Seeing her again felt as if some measure of light had returned to my world, bright enough to chase away every shadow that had gathered over the years. We began talking, reminiscing, and for a brief and blissful window of time, I believed that the past could indeed be undone, that the heart could retrieve what was lost, and that life might finally grant me the love I once had to abandon. My illusions crumbled, however, when I learned she was living with another man, bound to him in a tangled web of shared responsibilities and emotions. It wasn't a simple matter of stepping away from him and returning to me. Hearing this felt like stepping into a fire. I had soared so high on the wings of hope, only to plummet into despair. In that moment, every scar inside me was reopened. For days on end, my mind would not rest. I'd try to sleep but only toss and turn. I'd attempt to eat but feel my stomach twist in knots. The heartbreak was deep, and combined with my father's old disapproval echoing in my mind, it felt like I'd lost all sense of identity. Before I could even catch my breath, I lost my job as well. A series of downsizing decisions in the company left me without a position. They handed me my final paycheck, a polite apology, and I walked away, feeling so hollow I barely had the energy to grieve. In my youth, I had always been the resilient one, the person who could handle setbacks and keep a smile. But heartbreak and unemployment together formed a blow that nearly pushed me off the edge of reason. Stress weighed on me so heavily that my body began to react in ways I had never anticipated. My bones felt as though they were literally dissolving under the pressure. Sharp pains shot through my legs, hips, and back whenever I tried to stand up or walk. Even a simple stroll to the mailbox became a painful reminder that everything was spiraling out of control. The doctors told me it might be exacerbated by stress, that rest could help, but I couldn't figure out how to rest when my entire life felt overturned. Out of desperation, I would wander down a forest path near my home, searching for some measure of peace in the rustle of leaves and the soft layers of moss. But there, surrounded by towering trees, I found only darker thoughts. Several times, I stared at a sturdy branch above me, wondering how easy it might be to tie a rope and end the pain. I would picture my father's reaction, my lost love's reaction, and the emptiness that had become my daily existence. Those moments were terrifying. To be that close to despair is a state I would never wish upon another soul. Yet in the midst of that dark forest of the mind, there were beams of light I could not ignore. Though I often felt utterly alone, certain people in my family quietly supported me. They didn't lecture me about my choices or scold me for my misery, they simply offered what they could. A warm meal, a ride to the clinic, a sincere conversation, sometimes even just a gentle pat on the back without any words. These gestures, small as they might have seemed, worked like drops of water on parched ground, reminding me that despite all the pain, I was not wholly abandoned. After one particularly tough night, I found myself thinking about the length of a human life. In the world we live in, people often live well into their 80s or 90s, sometimes beyond. That means I might have decades left. The thought was both daunting and oddly motivating. Since I was still alive, I could not allow myself to waste away in sorrow. Maybe there was a way to rebuild. Perhaps I could learn a new skill, maybe even change my career entirely. With that shaky optimism, I enrolled in a program to earn an electrical license, figuring that people always need electricians somewhere. If I could master this trade, I might find stable work and regain a sense of purpose. It was not a quick fix. Studying again after so many years took discipline and focus I barely felt I had. My back and leg pains persisted, demanding constant breaks and stretching. But something in my spirit refused to quit. I pressed on, day after day, module after module, exam after exam, until, eventually, that prized license was in my hand. A local contractor decided to take a chance on me, and step by step, I learned the ropes of practical, on-site electrical work. There were days I felt so unsteady, I feared I would collapse on the job. But I refused to let my body's struggles or my fractured heart keep me from this opportunity to start anew. A decade has passed since then. By no means have I achieved some spectacular transformation where all my burdens evaporated. Life remains challenging, but time has imparted a bit more stability and acceptance. I am better off financially and psychologically. Where once I contemplated giving up every morning, I now awaken with a gentle sense of gratitude. It is a feeling that helps me reach for my Bible first thing in the morning. I open its pages even before the sun has fully risen and let the words guide me. One passage I hold close to my heart says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." Psalm chapter 147 verse 3. In those ancient words, I find a reflection of my own journey, an assurance that our wounds, no matter how deep, can be tended and made bearable. Reading scripture has become my refuge. Whenever I sense the old sorrows creeping in, I pause to read another verse. I remind myself of these words, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11. Though I cannot see the future clearly, I trust that there is a hand at work that understands my path far more comprehensively than I do. Day by day, I ask for guidance, leaning on the comfort that I do not walk alone. Even if my steps sometimes feel uncertain, I believe there is a bigger picture that I cannot yet comprehend. Now, nearly 60 years old, I stand on the brink of a new phase of life. If things had followed a smooth and predictable course, I might have saved enough money to retire by my early 60s. But years of heartbreak, career changes, and wandering uncertainty left me with little nest egg. I accept that I'll have to work longer. Yet I also recognize what a blessing it is that I can still work. That electrical license that once seemed like a desperate gamble has become my ticket to continuing employment. As long as my health allows, I can earn a living, keep my mind occupied, and remain connected to the world around me. Through all of this, I have sensed God's quiet presence, guiding me in moments I thought my strength was gone. Once, when I was fumbling with some complex wiring on a client's property, I was struck by how these separate lines, if connected incorrectly, would cause sparks or even a dangerous fire. But when guided by proper knowledge and caution, the currents flow exactly where they're meant to go, safely powering every device that relies on them. It reminded me that our lives, too, need proper grounding and connection. When we are aligned with the source of all comfort, we find the stability we need to navigate life's circuitous paths. I often dream about living near the ocean. Even now, I form images in my mind of a small place by the shore, maybe close to a bigger city, so I can have access to whatever I might need. But I picture myself there, hearing the tide roll in and out, letting the rhythmic crash of waves soothe whatever aches remain in my heart. It's a dream that pushes me to keep working, saving, and waiting for the right time to make that move. Maybe I'll open my windows in the early morning, hear the seagulls calling, and quietly sit with the Bible in my lap, conversing with God about the events of the day. I am not sure when that day will come, or if it will come exactly as I imagine. I leave that to the one who understands far more than my finite mind can grasp. But I want to be ready. I want to keep my heart open and my spirit attuned to the presence of God in every moment. Even if I am just another ordinary worker, living a life that will never be written in grand history books, I believe each breath can be precious, each choice can be meaningful, and each step can be guided by holy wisdom. My story is no extraordinary tale. I have not scaled mountains of fame or fortune. I have simply walked through heartbreak, doubt, and pain, then found a reason to keep going. In that sense, I hope it might resonate with anyone standing on the edge of despair. If you are reading or hearing these words with tears in your eyes or a lump in your throat, I want you to remember this. That dark night of the soul you are enduring can pass. Even if it lingers far longer than you'd like, the dawn eventually breaks, and with it comes the chance for a different perspective. I once stood beneath the branches in a lonely forest, questioning if life was worth enduring. But here I am, still breathing, still reflecting on scripture, still working with wires and cables, and still trusting that God holds my tomorrow. When the old pains resurface, I take comfort in reading, The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm chapter 34 verse 18. These words remind me of those nights long ago, when I was utterly convinced there was no escape from my misery. Yet somehow, I made it through, only to discover there were indeed possibilities waiting beyond the horizon of my depression. So to anyone in pain, consider pausing and looking to the source of light. Let your breath slow, open your heart, and listen for that small voice that says, "Hold on just a moment longer." Even if all you can see are shadows, the sun does eventually rise. When it does, you might find a single wildflower blooming at the edge of the woods, or the new job you never considered, or a kind word from a friend you thought had forgotten you. No life is so obscure that it cannot experience the gentle morning rays of hope. And one day, if I do make it to that seaside retreat, I imagine stepping onto the sand at first light, letting the foam wash over my feet, and feeling my chest expand with fresh air and divine assurance. The salty wind might rustle the pages of my Bible. In that delicate interplay of wind and waves, I see a glimpse of heaven, a place where sorrow is tempered by joy and the heart can heal from even the deepest wounds. That is the life I strive for, not one free of troubles, but one steeped in the humble gratitude of walking side by side with God, wherever the journey leads.